Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are joining from. I'm Steph Beckett, and I'm excited to be leading us through our latest and greatest launch and learn. This one is Fixing Your Fragmentation, Orchestrating a Hardware-Agnostic Workplace. And joining us in a few minutes are two guests from AppSpace. So before I start all of that, I just wanted to remind you guys a little bit about how to use our platform. First of all, today's event is for one CTS, CTSI, or CTSD RU. You will receive an email within 10 business days giving you your certificate. And that is going to be to the email that you use to register for this event with. So just keep checking that email. And of course, if you have any questions about that, you can always email me, steph@ravepubs.com. I'm always happy to help you guys figure out any of your CTS questions. I don't always have the answer, but I always find it for you. So I'm always happy to do that. So continuing on about our platform. First of all, if you can see and hear me, that's great. That's like half the battle. Second of all, use the Q&A area, which is directly to the right of my head, to insert any of your questions that you have for either of our guests. That is going to be where our team looks most closely for those questions. Also, we have a few poll questions today, so make sure that to keep answering those as you see them. We will warn you when we have a new one coming. So make sure to keep answering those. We do look to make sure that you're still paying attention throughout the event. And, having us call out a warning to you is always helpful for that, to make sure that you don't miss any of the questions. And then I see a few of you guys are already working and talking and networking, which is great. So feel free to use that general chat to communicate with everyone who is online for the event, or you can DM anyone if you would like to do that. We also have resources for the session if you would like to know any information or extra information about the things that we are discussing during this event today. We got blogs, we've got a few guides and a few videos. And then finally, if you scroll all the way down, you can connect with me, David, or Steve via LinkedIn if you would like to do that as well. So most of y'all are seasoned professionals at our platform, so I expect that y'all have it handled from here. But yes, very excited to go ahead and start this event. So let's bring on our guests, David and Steve. Hello, how are you guys doing?
Good, Steph. How's it going?
Doing good. I am excited to kick this off. So I would love if you guys could each just talk a little bit about yourselves and what you do at AppSpace. Steve, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for joining. I think I probably know many of you on this call. And for those that don't know me, I am Steve Gray. I run partnerships at AppSpace. So I've been here for 10 years now. I've had the pleasure of working with all of our AV, IT resellers, technology, software, hardware, and alliances partners. So thank you for your partnership and glad to have you on the call today.
Amazing. And David?
Yeah, hi. I'm David Fleck. I am our Senior Director of Product Marketing and Partner Marketing here at AppSpace. So that means I get to work with both our product team, our sales team, our marketing team, and our partner team as well, to kind of understand what everybody's looking for and how I can take what the product team is doing and change that into words that people can actually understand, because I think they speak a different language half the time. And I can tell everybody about the great things that are happening in our product and how it actually solves the problems that are going on in the market. So
That's
glad to
amazing.
be on.
That's a
Yeah.
lot of what we're talking about today. So that's perfect. So yeah, let's talk about it, because first of all, we live in a very fragmented space in terms of the workplace today. I'd love if you could kind of talk a little bit about what exactly that means.
Yeah, from a fragmented perspective, I think what happened a while back, and I'm going to say the P word, and then I probably will not try not to say it again, but during the pandemic, that's it. That's my one time, I swear. Um, what happened was we saw a lot of new challenges that organizations were facing. And one of the ways that they tried to solve those was to implement new technology, whether that was people working from home, but then when they did come back to the office was different. So there was new technology that organizations were purchasing and using, and individual functions started to use different tools. And so like you saw different locations across the globe or across the nation, were using different tools. And you had your HR teams, your IT teams, your facilities teams, they all were purchasing different hardware, different software that they were installing and using and then telling their teams to use. And now all of a sudden, employees had no idea where they were supposed to be going. They didn't know, am I chatting in this tool? Am I, booking my room here? Do I have a desk? And so it caused like this crazy silos, and that's what led to this fragmented experience, both for admins that were trying to administer all of these new tools and technology, but then almost as probably more importantly is the experience the employees were having. And each one had a kind of a different experience within their own organization. So working there felt different depending on who you were.
Absolutely. Do you think that there is a space in particular where organizations are particularly feeling the impact of that fragmentation the most?
Um, I think a lot of it comes down to the difference between working in the digital workplace and then working in the physical workplace and that transition.
Right.
So, for me, I work from home almost exclusively, but we do have an office in Dallas. We also have an office in Tampa and all across the globe. Um, but when I go to the office in Dallas, I have a very different technology setup than I do here, and it's actually better at home. So it was okay. What's the reason to go to the office? Why are we there? And what's the experience there? And do I have the right technology? And so that transition between where I work and how I do my work, I think became one of the biggest issues that employees were facing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think the other side of that would be, if I'll go to the next one here is, I want to talk about the data a little bit, because I think this is another pain point for us is that we've seen is organizations have built these smart workplaces, for example, to take advantage of the new technology that's out there, which I think is great. That is definitely where it's headed, and where we need to be spending some time to understand how your spaces are being used. But what it's also happened is that same fragmentation that we've seen with the experiences people are having, we're seeing with the actual data that organizations have access to and are using. So if you have all the data in the world about who's coming into the office, what rooms are being booked, what desks are being used, how people are interacting on the internet, the digital signage that's through the office, and is it playing the content, and when is it playing the content? You have all of this data, but if it's not connected to each other and talking to each other, and we're just looking at it in these little fragmented silos, the insights that you're going to get from it are very limited to even help at all. And so I think that's another issue that we've seen a lot of people facing is, Gary, I have all this data, but I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to use it. And I don't know what decisions to make based on the data that I'm seeing.
That's so true. I've heard a lot about that in the industry as well, where it's like AV has always been great about gathering data. We have not been so great about like the next step. Like what do we do with it?
Yes, exactly. And I know we'll talk about it, but like the AI side of things, I think is where it can really help. And I think one of the things people have been trying to figure out is how do I, we're all talking about AI and all that kind of stuff, but it's like this is the great place to use um, artificial intelligence to really dig into the data that you have and connect these different data sources, because
Mhm.
it can look at it better than a human can and then start to give you some ideas of what's going on. Look for trends, look for things that you may not be able to see, or if you did, it would take you much longer to find out. So I
That's
think
fair.
that's one of the great actual use cases where AI is making a difference.
Where it's like helping and not just kind of like a marketing term that we
Yeah, exactly. I
not
take
calling
no
anyone out,
offense.
but
Yeah, I take no offense, Steph. All right, thanks.
yeah, no. And so if we recognize these issues are there, like in the AV industry, we know this exists, we have the data to back it up. Why do they persist even when we're recognizing that the problem and the disconnect is here?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons it persists is nobody owns the overarching workplace experience. And so it's one of the things that we've talked about a lot is And we specifically refer to it as the workplace experience because there's a lot of different experiences built within that around the workplace. So to us, we see there's a digital side, there's a digital workplace and a physical workplace. And like I was talking about before, you have an experience in either one of them.
Yeah.
The employees do. But then there's also those that are coming in, you have the employees that are experiencing that, you have visitors coming in, and then you have the administrators and the facility managers and the people behind it that are having their own experience of how to manage and maintain it. And each individual piece is kind of looked at and owned by a different function across the org. And so what happens is because no one person is kind of looking at it from that high level overarching workplace experience and how all these things are connected, you start to still see technology being chosen to solve a specific problem without thinking about how it affects somebody else's experience in the overall workplace. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that we're not zooming out enough to look at this overarching experience and then have somebody that's one person or at least a team that's thinking of it at that level.
Yeah, we're all kind of stuck in our own silos.
Yeah.
And because we're all stuck in our own silos and our own organizational experience, the technology can't really help that. We got to help
Yes.
ourselves.
100%. Exactly.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Do you think that in like, basically like these problems, like how do we break that down then? Like how do we break the silos, I guess?
Yeah. I think it starts with understanding what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve as in your organization, or if you're an integrator, an AV integrator or somebody like that, what's that organization trying to achieve? And to understand that, to know that, I think is the best way to do that is talk to your employees and trying to figure out what their expectations are, because expectations have shifted, have changed. Employees' expectations of what the workplace experience is has completely changed over the last 5 years or
Right.
more. And you need to understand that, and understand that whether we want to admit it or not, depending on who we are, the power dynamic has kind of adjusted and changed a little bit as well. Employees have a lot more choice in where they work and how they work and all that. And we need to understand that. And if an organization understands the expectations of their employees by talking to them,
Yeah.
the goal of what we're trying to achieve will become much more clear. And then you can move on from there.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I believe we have a poll question coming up. So, this is your first poll announcement to everyone who is online. And this poll is: what is your biggest challenge when it comes to managing your workplace hardware and your devices? So, make sure to go answer that below. And I'm interested to see what they say.
Me too.
So, let me see. Yeah, I want to see what people are saying so far.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and this is what I was talking about before, like trying to understand the different challenges that different people are facing. I think this answer might give us a little bit of insight in that the challenges are different depending on who you are and how your organization is set up. So understanding the differences in those will then help you understand the solutions you can actually
Yeah.
action.
Yeah. Someone in networking said we have no workplace experience leader, split between facilities, exchange, desktop, individual department heads, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah,
Yes.
it sounds like this is definitely something that people are experiencing. So
Yeah, I've heard that sentence in some form. I don't know how many times in the different events that I've been to and speaking on different panels. It's usually that's the case. We go, I don't own that, or who owns that, or you don't even know, and they all kind of point at each other a little bit at times.
yeah. Well, let me see. Can I see? Okay. I can't see the breakdown yet, but I will go back and check that. We can go ahead and start section 2.
Great.
So we've kind of talked about the problems and how organizations can unify those existing systems, but let's kind of talk about like how they can do that
Yeah.
without messing up everything, basically.
Yes, that
It's
should be your
possible.
goal. You
Yeah,
don't mess everything up. That's
don't
the
mess everything up.
that's the top line goal. I get it. Um, yeah, I think that's a good question, and the answer is going to be different for everybody to a certain degree. But one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about today was stop kind of the headline here, right? Like stop buying your way out of a software problem. Um, and so what we mean by that is focus on the experience that people are having, focus on the hardware that you already have, and then find a way to tie that all together because there are a lot of different software that and tools that you can use that will kind of connect all these different AV and IT, whether it's your sensors in your room to the conference room meeting software that you're using, the cameras you're using, and the TVs and the displays, and then the room booking panels. All of those things can be from a different organization, a different manufacturer, a different software provider, and they can actually be tied together with a platform that is focused on the workplace experience. Um, so thinking about that, thinking about a software-led strategy as opposed to a hardware-led strategy, and it's a different shift in thinking, but it helps, especially when we're considering the digital workplace and the physical workplace as one unified experience. So I think that's the first thing is let's shift our focus at the beginning on the employee experience and the software you're using to tie all these experiences together.
Absolutely. We're moving away from the rip and replace.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That happens a lot, and it creates a lot of waste too. In budget, one thing that you think about, it does create a lot of e-waste, which if that's something that your organization is thinking about, rip and replace, you could have perfectly good working hardware, but if you start getting locked into those walled gardens because you think it's going to make the experience better, it's not always the case, and it actually can cost you money.
No, that's absolutely fair. And also, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it, but do you want to talk a little bit about like how this approach actually like extends the life of your equipment?
Yeah, no, that's a great call. It absolutely does, and I think I've even got a slide here that can talk
Oh, I
about
might be
that.
getting ahead of myself a little bit.
No,
Sorry.
don't worry about it. But I like this slide here because I think it's funny because that does look similar to the monitor that I'm looking at right now. I've got an old monitor, but I think that's just there to kind of show you the example of there's a lot of companies may get tied up into or caught up in the new features and functionality, the new smart features of a particular piece of hardware, or this camera has now better resolution or something like that. There are times where you absolutely need to replace old aging technology for sure. And that's not something, we're saying you shouldn't do. But there are also times where you should be thinking about how do I actually just have a software that connects these that is the experience, that's what's driving the experience on this particular hardware. So for example, the integrations that you can use. So AppSpace, for example, can connect your meeting room hardware, can take some of that data from the meetings that are booked and connect them through, and then share that to your digital signage and your content team to understand what content to push in that area based on who's around. And so you didn't need to install a whole bunch of new sensors and cameras and
Sure.
all this stuff to make that happen. You just use some of the data that you can get from your existing hardware and tie it in the background with the software.
Absolutely. How else does a platform layer kind of work and how does it function in other like mixed hardware environments like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of use it. Like you can see here, a lot of time it's the data,
Hmm.
right? That platform, and we talked about it before, those data silos, that I think is the biggest thing that a software platform in the back end can do. So taking in the data from all the different hardware that you have already installed, and then connecting them into one level of insights and analytics, that now becomes your single source of truth. The other thing that it can do is a platform like AppSpace can be the one place where you go to manage all of your devices. So most of the device manufacturers have their software layer to kind of provision devices, manage uptime, et cetera. Having a software layer that can kind of do that across manufacturers and be a little bit more hardware agnostic, it gives you that same level, but with just a single pane of glass and a single source of truth to manage all of that. So that dramatically reduces your admin time and dramatically reduces all the number of apps you have to bounce between to do the job from a day-to-day standpoint.
Absolutely. I like that you also mentioned in this slide about like reducing that vendor fatigue with that single management layer, because that's something that's very real as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Going to each one, submitting a ticket in their support system, or asking for when's this going to be updated, et cetera. Yeah, that gets tiring, and sometimes it's like, who do I even go to for that? So if you can reduce that, you're not going to eliminate it, and I don't think that's what anybody is trying to say. You're definitely going to have to still interact with certain vendors and all that kind of stuff. But if you can manage it to get it to reduce that, the number of times you have to go to different apps and talk to different people and maybe get it down to just a single support team, man, that's a big difference in your daily life.
Absolutely. I'd love if you could talk a little bit too about, we talked about what's changed in the workplace in the past few years since, that word that we're not going to repeat. But what from the last few years has made this approach so much more practical now?
Yeah, I think honestly, maybe what we're kind of talking about there is like this idea of the intelligent workplace, and workplace intelligence has grown and made this possible. And just the interactivity between technology that organizations are using. So that becomes kind of the foundation of the experience, and gives you the ability to actually tie these together. So for instance, like us, AppSpace and Zoom is a good example, where Zoom has their own basic digital signage functionality, but we've worked with them and partnered with them, and now you can actually use AppSpace as your digital signage provider while you're still using Zoom for your meetings. And so these integrations, I think, have grown across all of the different technology solutions in this space. You've seen a lot of different partnerships. You've seen a lot of different integrations. And then you've seen what we've tried to do, where we're taking the core of what really affects your workplace experience and put that into a single platform. So that, and then I think, so that data sharing and integrations, but that and the AI side of things. I think that's been a game changer, more so recently. It's really obviously taken off recently, but that's been something that's really allowed people to gather insights, automate manual tasks that used to be very difficult. For instance, you have to publish content across multiple locations in your organization, and you have people across the globe speaking different languages. That manual process of creating all the right content, the right digital signage content, the articles in your intranet, et cetera, and then doing a version in every different language. Gosh, that was such a ton of work, and still is. Yeah. But with AI now, you're able to let AI do the translation for you. So you publish it one time, and then it automatically translates it and publishes it to the right place, based on the languages or the location that maybe that user has selected. So that's just an example of like, okay, that process, that double work has just eliminated it. And now we're able to kind of do the things we're talking about now.
Absolutely. Oh, I had a question come in that kind of is relevant to this slide about someone using Microsoft Teams rooms. So does AppSpace integration, does that run natively on the MTR console, or do they need extra hardware for things like signage, visitor check-in, etc.?
Yeah, great idea. So we do run natively on MTR devices for digital signage. So one of the things you can do is any of your Microsoft Teams Rooms devices that you have running in MTR mode, you can choose in the setting your digital signage provider. And so when it goes to sleep, it'll natively pull up AppSpace for all digital signage content on that device, which is great, a great use case. For now, you can add so that when it does go to sleep, you add content to it that has instructions on how to use that room, right? Because you have so many employees that don't work in the office day to day. They come in there and they go, okay, what button do I press? How do I start my meeting? What's going on here? If your digital signage gives the instructions, the Wi-Fi password, you can do a lot with that real estate that was just blank, before. And the cool thing is, because it is a native integration with AppSpace on Microsoft Teams Rooms, you can choose to have all of the Microsoft Teams Rooms information still displayed over that digital signage content. So you could say like what the next meeting is this room available? All that you would normally just see when it's between meetings still is there.
Nice. And in terms of making this successful, where do partners and integrators typically play the biggest role?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I should invite my counterpart, Steve, and give my break a little bit. Steve, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, great question. I've been dying to talk. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so
This is
obviously
usually the
that's my
opposite with
day-to-day
us.
job is working with you, our partners. And look, we're just a software company, although a very critical layer of how organizations manage their workplace and bringing all this hardware to life. At the end of the day, our AV and IT integrators, first and foremost, are very consultative, to educating our customers on how all this works and what the best practices are. So I think just being consultative to your customers, and secondly, when we sell the hardware, when you sell the hardware, being able to install it, bring it to life, connect it to AppSpace and help them set up AppSpace to get this going and to help them manage this. So at the end of the day, we're just one part of a much larger solution that our AV and IT integrators bring to life.
Absolutely. So we have another poll question, I believe. So, for all of you who are out there, we would love for you to describe what your current tech strategy is. If you are rip and replacing, if you're doing platform first, the status quo, or whether you're very siloed, we would love to know. So let us know in networking, or let us know, in the polls, and we'll see how you guys answer that too. I'm interested. But yeah, I'll let you keep going, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as answering the question around how we partner with our AV IT community, hopefully that answered the question. Was there anything else in relation to that, Steph? Any other follow-up questions?
In terms, we got another one, but this one is about, in terms of like being hardware agnostic. So someone asked, can you run this on, you kind of answered this, but can you run this on older displays that we already have installed, or are there specific minimum specs that we need to look for?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So AppSpace is largely hardware and OS agnostic, meaning we have our app built for every operating system, Windows, Chrome, Android, et cetera, making it easy for whatever hardware your customers have or our app can run on to install AppSpace on those devices. But we also have certified partnerships with a lot of industry leaders, whether that's media players like BrightSign running on the BrightSign OS, or Sony Bravia, or Philips, or LG, or just a host of digital media manufacturers, as well as room scheduling partners like Crestron and Logi and Neat. And then Dave talked about our integrations into collaboration endpoints. We've been doing that for years with non-MTR, non-Zoom rooms, devices like Cisco and Crestron and others that maybe aren't MTRs or Zoom enabled today, but through our integrations with Zoom and MTR, we can also run on those devices as well. So it opens up a host of possibilities for AppSpace really to run on any device that's in your customer's tech stack.
Amazing. All right. Are we ready to continue on to the next section?
Yeah.
All right. Let's do it.
Me.
Right. Yeah. Steve, I think you should have, do you have
Yep, there we
control
go.
of the
Yep, I got
slides?
it now.
There you go.
So yeah, so to set this scene up, we talked a lot about the technology, and obviously a big part of this conversation is around, leveraging your existing hardware and tech stack. But I think it's really critical, as Dave alluded to think about this in the terms of the employee. So I think every decision that organizations are making is to better that employee experience. So, one thing I want to take you through, here in a minute is what does that look like? So, for an employee today who works anywhere and everywhere, what does that experience look like from the time they get up and they open their computer up and are searching for the latest message, or to find a building that they want to, book for the day, or a space at the office? So, what does that look like, and how can we be helpful and remove the friction points along the way?
Very cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see where organizations kind of notice these improvements first.
Yeah, so great question. So I think before we get into the in-office conversation, I think just looking at this framework we have set up here, we go back to sometimes employees don't go to the office, right?
That's true.
Sometimes they don't go ever, and sometimes they just go when they have to or when they need to. So you think about where we can be most helpful in some of the problems that customers are trying to solve, and that's getting communication and the ability to book spaces for customers into one centralized place. So, kind of going back to some of the challenges that employees have faced is, some employees like to consume content via email. Some prefer to go to Teams. Some prefer, to go to the internet, or all the above. So making sure that the content, when employees start their journey, is always up to date. So wherever they go looking for information, they have the latest. And then the same conversation, just making sure they have the tools and technologies to find and book spaces. They know what to expect. Employees don't want to just show up at the office. They want to know, before I go to the office, I have a building pass. I have a visitor coming to visit me, and I know that they have what they need to be successful when they show up. I know that I have my desk for the day, my locker, a conference room for a very important meeting, and everything in between. So it's really about this 360 experience that employees need to be successful. And the last thing I'll say on this is it needs to be consumerized. And that's one thing AppSpace has worked really hard at. It's really, our motto is consumerizing the employee experience. You got to give them tools and technologies they're familiar with, to make it easy on them, that they'll actually adopt the technologies.
No, that makes a lot of sense, because at the end of the day, you don't want to, like, all of these things that could come up if they're not all connected could slow you down in your workday. And that's like the last thing anyone wants.
Absolutely. If employees feel frustrated, and they're not going to use the technology, and we've seen a
Yeah.
lot of that the last few years, right? People bought a lot of technologies that weren't connected, and people were, employees were being asked to download 3 or 4 apps that didn't work together, right? That's a lot to keep up with.
Yes. And at the end of the day, I'm just not doing all that.
Absolutely, yeah. If it's complicated, they just won't use it.
Yep, exactly.
So I
So,
think,
yeah,
yeah,
sorry,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Steph.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, okay, I see here, this is like the visitor log. So when someone comes in, first impression to the office, what are we looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. So you think about the journey we just talked about, employees, you're booking spaces to go to back to the office, and they get in their car and on their journey to the office, and they arrive. The first thing they typically see is the visitor management experience, which with AppSpace, the great thing about it is you also can use this for the employee as well. It's not just a visitor management experience, which you can also use it for that. So when you get to the office, being able to already be pre-checked in. So I go back to most employees, before they go to the office, they already want to know they have their building pass, or their visitor does, and being able to use AppSpace to check in for this experience. And what you see here is AppSpace running on a neat frame. So we're, once again, very hardware agnostic. So this could be served up a number of different ways, but this is a great product. So for the AVIT folks out there, and for customers, this is a great simple way to execute on this experience, to be able to check in with the QR code, and be in the office. And then for the facilities teams and IT teams, now you've captured people coming in, going back to
Yeah.
that connected experience of how this building is being used. and you can make better and more informed real estate decisions based upon that information.
Absolutely, to see all of like the coming and going. And then in terms of me being the host, how does that work for me when a guest comes in and then checks in?
Yeah, great experience. Great question. So you think about it from the visitor experience. You'd receive a pass. So when you go to visit the person that you're visiting at the office, you can check in with this, which will notify the employee however you want it notified, email, Teams. You can set it up a number of different ways, where they receive a notification that their visitor is checked in, is there to meet them. So very seamless.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think the last thing to think about here, Steph, is this is a great illustration of some of the things Dave talked about, and when a lot of companies, bought this technologies to solve problems when hybrid work became a thing. And you'll see a lot of companies that have a visitor management console that does just that. It's only for on-demand check-in for visitors coming to the office. So it's really limiting into how you can use that. And going back to the crux of this conversation, it's super easy to turn this on inside of AppSpace. It's just another experience that you can enable to use AppSpace for. So it's just, it's a lot more connected versus having this bespoke system that a lot of people bought this for.
Yeah. No, nice. So this is what happens when the visitor comes in, and then what happens next?
Yeah, absolutely. So continue along that journey. AppSpace does wayfinding out of the box. And you think about just from the employee experience, a lot of employees, don't go to the office every day, right? So this may be the first time they've gone in a long time. Maybe it's a new building and they need to know where they're going. So you walk through that front door and I've got a conference room and I think it's on the third floor. How do I get there? So AppSpace can natively serve up wayfinding to where employees can scan a QR code and get the trail crumbs to take them exactly to where they're going, kind of the navigation step by step. If this is an interactive experience, which we're showcasing our partnership with D10 on this slide here, which is natively interactive.
Nice.
To where maybe your situation's changed and you got to the office and you had a meeting room that was scheduled for 4 people, and now you've got 8 people in the room. You need to change rooms. So whether you do that through the app or whether you do it on the kiosk here, either way, it's succinct and it's a seamless integration with your calendaring, O365 or GCal, to where this is going to automatically update and then relocate you to a new space.
That's really cool. I like the step-by-step directions too, because that is something that frequently happens in our office. We work in a co-working space, so there are a ton of companies who take residents here. And whenever we have someone come in for an interview or have a guest come in, they never know where to go. And usually I have to go find them somewhere on one of the floors in this building.
Yeah, last thing you want is employees and visitors wandering around lost.
Yeah. All right. I love this too. Like the one single dashboard. That's what everyone wants at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is showcasing AppSpace for communications. So you think about, kind of going back to where the employees started their journey, which, is their home, right? And, making sure the messaging reaches them wherever they are, whether that's at their home, on their internet, via Teams, via email, or when they get to the office, that message is being reinforced, and there's very targeted messaging for digital signage across the office as well. So that's one unique thing with AppSpace, having an omni-channel communication. So you think about it from a communication stakeholder standpoint, that's a big problem to solve, right? Historically, they've had to go update an internet. They've had to go update signage. They really haven't had another way to get that connected into their email and collaboration endpoints as well. So with AppSpace, it's just an omni-channel communication approach. So communications team can get messaging where it needs to be and meet the employee where they are. And from an employee perspective, there's nothing more frustrating than pulling up your favorite means of communication and having communication from last year that wasn't updated because it was cumbersome for the communications team to do that. So it just gives the employee confidence to know wherever they're looking, they're always in the know with the latest.
Yes, because and also like the other bad thing about that is one, yes, of course, like having that, communication from last year. What's even worse is not having it at all because it's only been communicated to those employees who are in the office, and those who work from home, since they aren't in any of those conference rooms, don't see any of that digital signage. So that's like the other end of it there too, that can kind of be frustrating if, offices aren't thinking about that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. And I think one of the things to take into consideration from the hardware standpoint is we see this every day is people are frustrated with all of this, but they feel like they're tethered to the hardware that they bought for their signage. And we're
Yeah.
replacing that every day. It's, once again, being hardware and OS agnostic, it's really easy to point those devices to app space and to quickly have one way of communicating with wherever you are, once again, and from a hardware perspective, just making sure you can leverage what you already have in place, whether that be a Brightsign player, a Chromebox,
Hmm.
a system on chip device. So it's easy to reference those app space and just make more value out of that existing real estate, not have a disparate system in place.
Absolutely, and not having to replace every single one of them if you decide that you want to use a different type of signage suddenly.
Absolutely.
So yes, here's another struggle is picking the right room and keeping that room, and then like also the other option is like knowing which rooms are available and which ones are not.
Yeah, great point. And I'll kind of start backwards on this. You think about what space management was. A lot of organizations bought, Crestron panels, or Logi panels or Cisco panels outside of the conference rooms to manage that space from a hardware perspective, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then as things changed and people were home overnight, and you're trying to pull people back into the office, you needed to give them tools to be able to find not just a conference room on demand when you're at the office, but to think about it from the employee's perspective. I'm going to go back. I need a building pass. I need a conference room. I need a desk. And maybe it's outside resources, like I need, we have people that use this for parking places and lockers and ping pong tables and everything in between, right? So one of the biggest problems we solved is putting this front door to the workplace experience in the employee's hands, where they can find and get what they need going back. And to your point, nobody wants to show up at the office with a very critical meeting and hope there's a room for 6 people with
Yeah.
the equipment that you need, right? So before you go in, that you have everything that you need to be successful for the day. And I think something else that's cool too is employees want to know who's in the office, right? They want to know if their coworkers are there, their bosses are there, teams are there, right? So just giving all that mission critical information, all those points of intelligence to the employees, so they can know what to expect and have their day already planned or the week planned before they go to the office.
Yes. How does this syncing work with the people's calendars so that you can see who's in the office and when?
Yeah, great question. So obviously it's a seamless sync with, whatever calendaring system our customers use, O365, GCal. And I talked to some customers that, they have a hodgepodge of calendars, right? This is pretty typical, particularly on college campuses, where AppSpace becomes the source of truth, right? So it's going to sync with those calendars, but you also have one source of truth, once again, going back to a connected experience to collect all that information for the employee and for the stakeholders to manage all this data.
Amazing. All right. So, yeah, when it comes to, you have your set real estate most of the time, you have your office, this is the space. How can you guys help maximize that?
Yeah, we do it in a number of ways, but I think looking at this slide, and some of it's just getting the data around the real estate. So we have integrations with a lot of different sensors in the marketplace, like XY Sense, Logitech, Versense, and others that are doing what these devices were, what customers purchased them to do, right? And
Hmm.
AppSpace can integrate with those devices. We can detect and release unused reservations, AKA ghost meetings. We can report on what's going on in the building, and take that data and put it into AppSpace once again for both for the employee to make sure that all the rooms that are available are showing, right. You don't have a bunch of rooms that were booked that aren't being used, and also for facility teams as well. This is critical because as you're managing your real estate and making decisions, you want to make sure that you have the best information on what really happening and also what's happening in real time.
Absolutely. I love that you have the Logitech Spot there. That product always generates a ton of buzz at the past few trade shows. But like its biggest thing is like people are like, great, like Logitech makes a product for me to get all this information now. But what do I do with the information?
Yeah.
So I like that you guys have made it very easy, because here's the thing, like the AV teams they're already so busy that the last thing they like want to do is like, okay, now I have to comb through this data so that I can make decisions, and like so that I can release these rooms or figure out what needs to go in the room. So the fact that you guys help use the data for them, amazing.
Absolutely.
So I'm interested to see, yeah, like the next thing is, employee wellness, where that comes in. These sensors also get a lot of information about air quality, temperature data. When should we be leaving the lights on, and when should we automatically make them shut off? How can you guys kind of sync with that as well?
Yeah, and this is critical right now, right? I think a lot of companies just want to be smarter about how they, how they manage their real estate, as well as giving that information to the employees. Employee well-being is a really big deal as well. So AppSpace can take and display those insights. In this frame here, we're showing our integration with Metricus, and so we can take and show mission critical information. We can even do this in our app. So as employees start their journey and going back to that first experience, it can be displayed so employees know before they book a room what the health of the room is. You can even take it out of commission if a room becomes unhealthy or a space becomes unhealthy, depending on your corporate governance. Or if you're at the office and you go to a room and that you've had booked, and now maybe the CO2 is really high, and you want to find and book a different room, you could use AppSpace at the room scheduling panel to do that and find what else is available. But at the end of the day, the health and well-being of employees are mission critical to companies.
And we're only going to be thinking about this more and more as we are bringing employees back into the office. So it's really cool that you guys have even integrated with that portion of what a sensor can bring to an office space. We have another poll for everyone out there. So we want to know which workflow is most critical for your team. And the options are, of course, that lobby check-in and visitor management, wayfinding, the workplace communications we mentioned, or that Internet of Things and sensor integration to power those smart experiences. We want to know which of those is most important to you guys. So give us your answers. And while you guys do that, we will move on to the next section, which is kind of, we're building this operational intelligence, but how do we do that at scale, and how do we connect these systems, and how do we translate that into this next level, which is the decision making portion?
Yeah, great question. I think we can go to the next one. I can show you a little bit of a different slide here, but essentially, what we wanted to talk about here was centralizing what you're talking about there, right? And we talked about it a little bit. I talked about it before, but for IT managers or AVIT for facility managers and whatnot, one thing that we can do is kind of give you one dashboard to see a lot of this. Now, you can connect that data between who's coming in, what's being shown on the devices, what's being used in the organization or in your real estate. You can connect that all up, and then we do that we have native apps and integrations that work across so many different systems, like we talked about. And now you can enable yourself to even go do some troubleshooting. So the last thing you want to do is run around to all these different locations, and maybe that's not even possible.
Yeah.
So that enables that idea where you can do it from your desk, from remotely go troubleshoot some of these devices when you see that they're out. Or employees can be in the room and they can easily submit a ticket to tell you that something is wrong. And then that comes back through the AppSpace system, and through our integrations could maybe create a ticket in ServiceNow or something like that. So Yeah, so that's kind of one way to do that, where now you're creating a single dashboard that's very standardized on how you manage all of this across multiple systems from one singular place.
Because the thing that I hear from IT teams a lot is like, okay, but can this product help me keep boots off the ground? And I feel like this is y'all being like, yes.
Yes, 100%, right? Like I said, you don't want to be running around in different locations across the world and across the country or something. So yeah, we've really focused on that, and with how we work with the different hardware manufacturers to tie into their systems and make sure that our native integrations speak to each other,
Mhm.
so that you can alleviate some of that having to run around and do all this remotely through one place in AppSpace.
Absolutely. How else can you guys kind of help change the day-to-day ops for those IT and those facility teams that are very much the ones who are kind of the technical end users here, if you will?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we can do is create an extensible platform here that works across all of the different technologies that you're going to have to use, right? And then use the AI agents and AI assistants that we've introduced recently to take off some of that work from your plate. And that is going to make your job so much easier, where we're integrating and sharing data between these third-party systems, but then we're enhancing that with our AppSpace Intelligence assistants. That you can go and build your own assistant to do the things you want it to do that's specific to your organization. That's something that's unique to AppSpace that we have now, is this framework in the back end that allows you to create an AI assistant that is specifically for your needs and not just the off-the-shelf chatbot that
Yeah.
barely understands the context of what's going on in your organization.
The one that you scream at, "Talk to a person." Yeah. No,
Yeah,
this is
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
like, "You're not even gonna help me." No, this is actually another really great use case of how AI can actually be helpful to you rather than, just a lot of course, a lot of our industry just they add AI to add AI, but it seems like this is something that's actually very, very helpful.
Yeah, it really is. And as we continue to move forward, right now like we said, we just introduced some of our AppSpace Intelligence assistants and the framework for you to go build your own. We're already working on the agents side of it in the future as well, where you can kind of build them to always be running and somewhat autonomous within guardrails to do some of this, and maybe even be proactive, right? And
Yeah.
so that's kind of one of the things, is like, it's one thing to just wait until something is going on and then say, oh, I have to fix this problem. But
Mhm.
wouldn't it be nice if you kind of could anticipate that and understood what was coming? And then, maybe you can go make a change before it becomes a problem. And so we do that in a couple different ways, where we've got these dashboards where you can monitor uptime, you can monitor customer or employee sentiment, based on what's being posted and talked about in your intranet to kind of identify what's going on. And then it can use the AI and the assistants to analyze the usage, analyze what's happening, and it can maybe even give it a goal. You could say, hey, I need to maintain this level of engagement, or I need to maintain this level of utilization in our London office. And when that's starting to decrease, the
Mhm.
AI, our assistants can go, hey, look, we've noticed over the last few weeks, you're only getting 60% or something like that, and that's not fitting your goal. Here are some
Yep.
examples of ideas that maybe you want to implement to help with that.
Absolutely. And here are some ways that you can maybe use this room instead. Or here is the tech that's least being used, so maybe you don't need this in this room, but maybe you need it in this room instead.
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, understanding how the technology in those rooms affects how the room gets used,
Yes.
um, is huge, right? Because, and this goes back to what we talked about before with the expectations of employees. I go into our office for very specific needs, and most of the time that's around, I need to do some in-person team collaboration. And to do that, I need very specific technology in that room to help facilitate that, right? Because half my team will come in because we're local, but half my team, I have people from California to Toronto. And so not everybody's always there. So I need to have a way to get together with the people that are in person, but then also connect the people virtually as well. And the room setup affects that. The technology in the room affects that. And you'll see, like, why aren't these rooms being used? We have all these telephone booths. We have all these things. Why aren't they
Mhm.
being used? And you can understand, well, it's not providing the technology that's meeting the expectations of your employees. And now you can see how those two things need to meet up
Yes.
for you to achieve the goals that you're trying to achieve as an organization.
Absolutely. I mean, another great example of our office here is the telephone booths are always being used. And I think it is because people are scared of plugging into the conference rooms because they don't know how to use them. So they're like, I'm just going to use my own machine and just go and do it in the phone booth because I'm scared of learning how to use the neat bar in this
Yeah,
conference room.
yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. And yeah, it totally affects it. And then all of a sudden you've got all these people that came to the office and they're all sitting in individual phone booths, not talking to each other, and they're on remote calls right next to each other in a phone booth. And you're like, well, that wasn't the point of bringing
Yeah.
people back,
Well,
right?
yes, exactly. So, it's another example of really spending time learning, okay, well, what's the barrier to entry here? Why is no one using this room? How should
Yeah,
we change that? How should we fix it? How should we make it easier for them?
yeah, absolutely. Um, I think it goes beyond that too. I pull this up because I think we need to realize we're talking about a lot of the workplace management side of the physical office, but the workplace comms side of things ties into this, and a lot of times, IT, AV, facilities people, they're going, well, that's not, we don't have to worry about that. That's HR's job, like that's a different team. But they all work together. And if you kind of understand what messages are being put out there, the mandates, how people are getting that information, there's also a concept I think of facilities comms that
Hmm.
needs to be addressed and when you have a single platform that can facilitate that, both the internal comms that's HR is putting out, but then the facilities comms, like Steve showed on alerts and different broadcasts, when all of that stuff is working together in one experience, it really makes a huge difference. And then you can understand how it's actually making a difference by using the tools that we provide, the insights, the reporting, and the analytics, how all that stuff works together.
Absolutely. So the next couple of slides that you have are kind of all about like continuing the conversation and unifying and scaling that
Yeah.
workplace experience from, you know, yeah, I would love to look at like
Yeah.
these are real like life examples. So I'd love if you could like walk through that for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple slides. Steve, I'll let you kind of go through it. You're closer to these guys than I am at some
Yeah,
points.
yeah, absolutely. I know we've got a couple minutes, so I'll be quick here. But look, at the end of the day, what's this look like in the real world? And
Hmm.
the next couple of slides, you'll see a pretty consistent theme here with the way customers have used AppSpace and their needs as their needs have evolved through the years. So GSK, I think most people know who GSK is, multinational pharma company with over 50,000 employees and locations all over the world. Started using AppSpace in 2020 for digital signage. We quickly became the standard for how they got content to their devices at their physical office. And over time, they added AppSpace to their collaboration devices. So putting AppSpace on their inside of all their conference rooms. And then as they were bringing employees back to the office, started using AppSpace for space reservation in
Nice.
2023. And now the way that looks today is they're serving AppSpace up to 50,000 plus employees, actually served up inside of Microsoft Teams, talking about some of our cool integrations and leveraging their existing technologies so employees can receive communications and find and book spaces going back to the office. And one of their biggest initiatives was having the healthiest workplace in the world. And they've done that to some of the integrations we talked with our partners with Metricus and other sensor companies as well to better manage their real estate needs. So we do a lot for them end to end. But this is a pretty, consistent example of how customers have used this and how this has evolved through the years. And if you want to go to the next slide, actually, do I have it? Yep, I got it. So pretty similar story with Roche.
Yeah.
Just happens to be another large biotech pharma company that uses for signage. And over the course of time, we became their standard for space reservation as well. So really using AppSpace in an all-encompassing way for employees to receive communication and find and book spaces. And one thing I want to point out, these are two really big companies, right? We're helping companies of all sizes. I mean, people from 500 to 100,000 employees. What we're finding is they all have the same needs.
Right.
And, our platform's really built to scale to help companies to deliver on these objectives.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, that's a great point because, whether you are in a co-working space and just kind of like you have, 100 employees versus, a giant company of 10,000 people, you need to communicate to all of your employees and you need to communicate with one another. So that's absolutely great point. So kind of taking another step back, the roadmap for 2026, like what should everyone leave this call kind of having learned here?
Yeah, I think to sum it up, I mean, kind of goes back to what Dave talked about, having a software first strategy, and knowing that, you don't have to rip and replace your hardware. I mean, I think in time that, that's always something companies have to think about, but you can use your existing infrastructure and connect that to AppSpace. And then, using all the tools that we have to get the intelligence to make this a more friction-free experience for employees, as well as giving your customers better data to make more informed decisions.
Amazing. Well, I know we are about out of time, so thank you guys very much. And for everyone watching, I'm sure they have questions, they want to talk to you guys. What is the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the easy button here is partners@appspace.com. So any questions that you have, just hit us at partners at AppSpace, and we'd love to hear from you and love to connect with you.
Awesome. And yeah, what about you, David?
Yeah, if it gets there and it's for me, then they can contact us. But yeah, I think that's the easiest way is go through that route and we'll get you to the right person. But if it's a question that Steve can't answer, he will give it to me.
Awesome. And we also have connected both of your LinkedIns below. So if those of you who are watching want to scroll to the very bottom, you can connect with me, can connect with Steve, you can connect with David, and continue the conversation with them there, as well as going to AppSpace's website for more information or checking out all of the wonderful information that we have given you guys below, the guides, the videos, and all of that. So thank you all so much for joining. And Steve and David, thank you guys so much. And thank you to AppSpace.
You're welcome. Thank you
All
for
right.
having us.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.